to our second Titan Talk. It is January 2025, and I'm really excited for this one. So, as many of you guys know, this month has all been around mindset, working with the adversity within our business, within the sales side of the business, working in the adversity within relationships, our personal lives, and our professional lives. And we were thinking about as a team who we wanted to bring on as a guest to chat about mindset and what it takes to operate at such a high performance level, the first name that popped into my head, and I'm so glad it did, was my guy, Drew Hanlen. Drew, thank you. Welcome to the Titan Talk. How are you doing?
Doing great. Yeah, I'm excited about this. This will be fun to wrap back and forth and to try to give everybody out there that's listening as much as we can in the next 45 minutes.
So, Drew, I didn't want to share the intro because your resume is one of the most unique, detailed, and what I would say the most exciting resumes that I've seen, and just getting to know you over the years and what you've been doing. So for our audience here, for the people that haven't heard your story yet, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about, what you've been doing with guys like Jason Tatum, over with the Celtics, Bradley Beal, and everything else you got going on with all the other athletes like Joel Embiid and so forth.
Yeah, so basically I was a former college athlete. I had to work extremely hard being an undersized, basketball player growing up to get those college scholarships, and was fortunate to, have an all conference career, but I wasn't good enough to play in the NBA, but that wasn't where, I ended up landing. I ended up landing among the NBA ranks by training. And so, I started my coaching practice, my training practice when I was in high school as a junior. I self-published a drill book, end up selling 5,000 self-published books in one summer. And, the rest is kind of history. I started training, guys like Bradley Beal when he was 13 years old, Jason Tatum when he was 13 years old, RJ Barrett when he was 14 years old, Zach LaVine when he was 15 or 16 years old. And so I had all these young prospects that I helped, them develop and become NBA All-Stars. And, was fortunate that word of mouth spread and got, a ton of other players that I ended up working with. And now I work with 11 NBA guys full time. 8 of them are NBA All-Stars, and the other 3 are younger guys that I think will be in those shoes one day. But that's really the main focus of my business, is just helping these NBA players on and off the court develop into the best possible players and people that they can become. And now I've expanded into keynote speaking, corporate coaching, and everything else, just because I do believe that all the same systems, all the same strategies apply to every area of life, every area of business, not just basketball. And so that's kind of the short end version of it is, just I did basically, I applied all these things that I did with these NBA players to help them become successful. And now I'm using those with with everyday people, business founders and CEOs, and people like my dad. It's funny because my dad lost 90 pounds in a calendar year using the exact same strategies and systems that I use with these NBA guys. And he was like, if it can work on a fat man like me, it can work on anybody. I was like, you're right. So he's one of my biggest success stories, if you will. So I guess that's the shortened story of where I'm at and what I'm doing.
I remember catching up with your dad, and when we met in Vegas the very first time at Ben Newman's event. I think that was 2017, 2018, somewhere in there. Hilarious guy sitting next to me, and we were just chopping it up. And that's exciting that he's down all that weight and doing those workouts. And I could just imagine in my head him saying that while he's working out, and if he was on this call sharing that with us too. But I think when you mentioned that bio, and this is one of the things that I appreciate a lot about just our friendship and who you are as a person, is you're very humble about things. And, you've told me stories about, your days in college and what it was like to compete. And, especially with the size differences, a lot of the other players that you were going up against, and then going from training guys like Jason Tatum and working on the mindset and things like that. What I want to do today for our audience is spend some time, maybe taking us into what that looks like. Working with somebody like Jason Tatum, like Bradley Beal, Joel Embiid, all these other guys that are NBA All-Stars. There's, a couple different components to it. There's the personal aspect of dealing with the adversity and the mindset and making sure that we're operating at our highest level. And then there's the other side, which is the professional aspect, where, if we use Jason Tatum as an example, right, playing in the NBA playoffs and being able to handle, the ebbs and flows of how fast the game is changing and making sure that your mind isn't going in a million directions. As a coach, as a mentor, how do you work with your clients and work with them on mindset and help them understand, what it's going to take to operate at that high level?
Yeah, to be honest with you, when I first started training, it was all on court skills. I thought that my job was to help them, acquire as many skills as possible so that when they went out there, in games, they would be able to perform at a high level. And I quickly realized that, the mindset, the mentality, the confidence, the, overcoming self-doubt, the overcoming insecurities was not, kind of important. It was the most important thing. And so, I'm a big believer in, helping people build them up by making sure that we build evidence, by building confidence, by making sure that they truly do eliminate those, excuses or self-doubts, regardless how justifiable they may seem in their head. And, it's taken a lot of time to be able to, hammer home those messages, but it's something that we spend a ton of time, and it's a never ending process. People, obviously I've got a book coming out in 2 weeks, and I told a story about Jason Tatum when he was a junior in high school. And, when I first started working with him, he was so humble, so nice, and I hated it. And I was like, you normally don't tell a 13-year-old, like, hey, I need you to become an asshole, but that's what I did. And his mom was like, no, I want my baby to be like, nice and humble. And I said, listen, to be the best, you have to have a swagger. You don't have to be an asshole to people, but when you're on the court, I need you to be an asshole. I need you to be a killer. I need you to want to step on throats. I need you to, do all that. And she was like, yeah, I don't know. I wanted my baby to be like a humble superstar. And junior year, he goes in and they're playing in the state championship, and they get upset by a team that they should not have lost to. They were one of the top teams in the country, had a lot of talent. He, not only him played, become an NBA All-Star, but he also had another teammate that ended up playing in the NBA. And so they had two NBA players and did not win. And after the game, his mom walked right over to me because Jason did not attempt a shot in the last, I think it was 13 minutes of the game. His teammates weren't passing it to him, and he wasn't demanding it, and they lost. She walked over and said, I don't care what you have to do. Turn him into an asshole, turn him into arrogant, whatever you have to do. And, that next year, he got back to state playoffs. And I forgot the exact number, but it's like 35 points a game he averaged throughout the state playoffs. And he got to the state championship game. And I remember right before the game, I said, remember what happened last year? You didn't demand the ball, and you guys end up losing. Don't let it happen again. He said, don't worry, bro. You don't even have to worry about that. And Jason outscored the other team in the first half, outscored them. So at a halftime, I think Jason had 29 points and the other team had maybe 27 points at halftime. And, they ended up obviously dominating. He won his state championship. And so that's, him at 18 years old, 19 years old, however old you are as a senior. But now we still have to deal with that. He goes to the 2022 finals and they end up losing. They fell short. And, there's a moment of a period of time where he's like, man, I got so close, but I wasn't able to get over the hump. And so then it's, hey, back to work. Let's see what didn't work. Okay, we got to get better at finishing when they're following you and the refs aren't calling it. Boom. Well, now Jason, has literally improved his finishing rate by like 15% over the last, 3 years. And then 2 years later, boom, they win a championship. Then they win the championship. He goes over to the Olympics and, doesn't play as many minutes, doesn't have the role that he thinks he is. He already had won a gold medal a couple years ago as the number 2 scorer. It was Kevin Durant leading scorer. He was number 2 scorer. This year, for whatever reason, the coaching staff did not play him as much as he should have. And, there is another moment where we have to lift him back up, even though he had just won a championship, leading the team in points, rebounds, assists just a month before. And so the whole point of the story is there's going to be constant moments of doubt. There's going to be constant moments of insecurity. There's going to be constant moments where you don't feel like the man or the woman, depending on, whatever you're doing. But you got to constantly find ways to tap into levels that you've never tapped into before. And it all starts in your head and your heart, and one concept I always talk about with my guys, and I talk about it in the book, I talk about it all the time on stage, is there's a lot of invisible battles that are going on in your head and your heart. And you've got to win those games. I call them the deep games. They're the games that are deep within you, and you're deep within your head, deep within your heart. Sometimes you don't even know you're playing, but those are the games you have to win in order to win in life, in order to win in sports, in order to win in business, in order to win in whatever you're after.
Yeah, there's three different parts to that story that I want to hit on. The first being, Jason, and we'll just use Jason here because you shared upon him. When he was 13 years old, you brought that to his attention. Telling a 13-year-old, hey, you have to create what Todd Herman calls the alter ego right there. You have to build that alter ego. You have to go to that place. As a 13-year-old, I was different at 13 than probably most other 13s, like Jason Tatum out there hooping. I was trying to just at least get minutes on the court because I was so unathletic. So, having that conversation with a 13-year-old is such a unique balance to start building that mindset, because that's the first foundation block, is having the conversation. But now let's fast forward to junior, I think you said junior year, when they had that upset and mom comes over, talks to you about saying, hey, whatever it's going to take. How do you then sit down with Jason and go, hey, these are the tactical steps that we need to do to start building in this mindset? What was that conversation like? And what were some of those tactical steps?
I mean, the first thing, I'm big on building evidence. I think that self-confidence is overrated. I don't think you can just manufacture self-confidence. I believe it comes from small wins that you continuously have throughout your life, and so you build confidence. So I'm going to use my story, for example. For me as a basketball player, I was undersized. I was average athlete, but every morning I woke up at 4:59 a.m. and I would shoot 1,000 shots before school. I would make 850 out of 1,000 every morning. And so I literally saw the ball go in 850 times every single morning. Well, guess what? That builds evidence. It builds proof that you're a good shooter. You see it go in 850 times a morning. And, then there's times where you step out into the game and you still have that doubt, like, is my work going to translate? And you have to learn how to trust the work that you're putting in. But over and over again, as you hack away and as you build enough evidence, it's like, listen, I do this. I am a shooter. I shoot every morning. I make them every morning. So I'm going to make them in games. And I think that a lot of people don't attack it like that. And so with Jason, it was no different. It was, hey, listen, you are the best player in the area. You are the best player in the city. You are the best player in the state. You are the best player in the country. You are one of the best players in the world. Like, it slowly started from, hey, you're better than your teammates, which means you need to be the most dominant player on the team. Hey, you're better than everybody in the area, so you need to be the most dominant player in the area. Hey, now you're better than everybody in the city. Now you're better than everybody in the state. And then it literally grows like that. But I think too many times what happens is people try to leap and bound instead of step. And that's where it is. It is, you cannot go from zero to hero. It's impossible. When everyone talks about there's no such thing as overnight success, the thing that happens is if you build enough evidence, your evidence eventually takes over your mindset. Same is true in the opposite way. If you're somebody that constantly says, you know what, on Monday, I'm going to start a diet. And, on Monday, you start the diet. And Tuesday, you keep your commitment. Wednesday, you're doing a good job. Thursday, you're starting to feel proud. And then Friday comes around and your friends invite you out to dinner and you break your commitment, you break your promise. And then you end up having a bad meal. Then you end up drinking because you're like, I already blew my streak. And then you wake up the next morning hungover and you feel like shit because you let yourself down again. Well, that is evidence that you're going to let yourself down. And so if you have enough of those moments, then when you say you're going to do something, you don't trust yourself because you've let yourself down over and over again. So, the original question was like, how do you build it with Jason? That's what it was. It was, hey, if you say you're going to do something, do it. And then, over and over again, through that work, through that consistency, through that, basically track record, you're going to prove to yourself, if you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. So then when you say, I'm going to win a state championship, I'm going to be National Player of the Year, I'm going to get drafted in the NBA, I'm going to be an NBA All-Star, I'm going to win championships, you believe it because throughout your life, everything that you said that you're going to do, you've done. And so I think that most people don't have that mentality of like, how I do one thing is how I do everything. But that's how I approach everything. If you say you're going to do something, do it. And if you start doing it, then you're going to believe that, it's like the secret sauce. The secret sauce is like trusting yourself so much that you start believing, you can do anything. And the one quote that I always live by is, if you spend enough time around me, I'm going to brainwash you into believing that you can do anything. And I really believe that. Like I tell all my athletes, I'm like, if you spend enough time around me, I'm going to brainwash you into believing that you can accomplish anything. And I think that's what it was with Jason. It was just subtle wins, slow wins, but stacking wins to the point where he was like, man, I really am really good. Back in high school, he changed his Twitter handle to I'm that dude 22. And he's like, I'm that dude. I am that dude. The reason that there's everyone in the crowd, the reason that my games are sold out is they're here to watch me. I'm that dude. And so that's what people have to tap into is literally believing that, whatever they say they're going to do, they have a chance to get it done because they've consistently proven to themselves that, I'm going to be a solution finder. If there's problems in my way, I'm going to find solutions. If there's, trouble, I'm going to find solutions. And I'm not going to be somebody that falters to, default mode, which is take the easy way out, which is what most people end up doing.
So two things I want to hit on there, just recap for our audience. So tactics that Drew is saying, number one is seeing the evidence. And I would also partner that with what you said, Drew, of making sure that you have the self-talk to yourself of understanding you're going to do something. And, Jason was saying that I'm the best in the state, I'm the best in the city, I'm, the best in the country, working his way up and understanding that, hey, it's different levels. And one of the things we talked about a lot this month on our coaching calls with our group is there's different levels to the game. And so I think that, presses upon that point, seeing the evidence, putting in the work, giving yourself, not the confidence, but the reassurance maybe that, hey, you've done the work. You went out just like you did, Drew, shot those free throws. It gave you confidence when you're playing college ball that you could make those free throws because you were shooting 800 plus every single morning. And then going out there, making sure that you understand, okay, I'm not going to go 0 to 100. For a lot of our advisors on the call, you're not going from, hey, I'm an advisor today to I'm going to be the biggest advisor in the entire country. It's going to take time and there's steps to building it. And I think that's really important. A NBA champion is saying that and going through that same process of, hey, eventually I want to be in the NBA. Eventually I want to be an NBA champion. That'll come. But what's the first thing? I got to be the best in my hometown. Then I got to be the best in my state. Then I got to be the best, maybe in our region or maybe in our league right now, best in college and work my way up, which I think is very important. When we take a look at the most recent event, so in our coaching group, we have advisors and sales professionals from different stages, just getting started in their career to 5 to 10 years in. And a lot of these 5 to 10 year advisors have seen some success. They've reached, a handful of their goals. They're progressing in that realm, but then they run into that later point of adversity. And, one of the things I think that's really interesting about Jason's career is he had just won an NBA championship, flies to Paris, playing on the team and doesn't get that many minutes. And, as an NBA fan, I'm sitting at home. I was in the office that day when I watched them play. I think it was the semifinal game, which in my opinion was the Rio Olympics. That was the greatest game I've seen since, Kobe and the Dream Team and all that. But you see Jason not getting those minutes, but you go on social media and you're seeing these posts. Oh, Steve Kerr doesn't like Jason. Jason's not doing this, whatever it might be. Jason shouldn't have been invited to the team. And you're like, we're talking about an NBA champion, the man who put with his team, Boston on his shoulders to win an NBA championship for Boston just a couple months before. So take us through, what that mindset is of somebody who's reached that peak, now playing on a national level for the entire world to see, and then has to still deal with that adversity at that point.
Yeah, I mean, trust me, my NBA players, I mean, they know they are going to get heckled and rattled, and there's going to be fans that are angry at them for not hitting their parlays. I mean, there's literally, it's a never-ending cycle. But we always talk about, like, if you're not doing anything worth talking about, then you're not in the media cycle. But if you're doing things that are, worth talking about, then people are going to love you or hate you, and that's part of it. Believe it or not, I get 100 to 500 messages, DMs, mentions on social media a night because I have 11 full-time NBA clients. Most nights, 9 of them perform really well and 2 of them perform not very well. Those 2 that don't perform well, those fan bases just Drew, give a refund to whatever client struggled. Why do you suck at your job? Like, why? I don't even know why they listen to you. You were never in the NBA. And so what you have to really do is you have to be numb to everything. You have to realize that people are going to have their opinions. People are going to have their suggestions. People are going to have, a ton of ideas. But what I always say is if you wouldn't take advice from somebody, you shouldn't listen to that person. You know what I mean? So if that person is somebody that you would not go seek out for advice, then why would you listen to whatever they're saying? And so we just ignore a lot of that stuff. What we really do is we constantly ask ourselves, where are you? Where do you want to get to? What is the gap that exists? How do we shrink that gap into manageable steps? And then what are the actions you have to take to make that gap shrink so that you're eventually where you want to get to? And so we don't really focus on the negativity. We don't focus on the the mindset. We really just focus on getting the result that we're after. And so for Jason, as soon as the Olympics ended, it was okay, check. You got a second gold medal. What's the next? What's the next? What's next? What's next? What's next? I mean, that's literally how we think. Jason was one of the people that wrote the forwards for the book, and he wrote a really cool quote at the end of his forward that basically said, when you get to the top of the mountain, that's when you keep climbing. And, he just won a championship. He won a gold medal. He's done a lot of really cool things. He's been first team All NBA the last couple of years, is on track to be another All NBA this year. So he's in rare category. As a 26-year-old, he's got a first ballot Hall of Fame resume already if he retired today. And he's like, but that's not what I set out to do. I set out to be one of the greatest basketball players ever. And so I'm running my own race. And so I think if more people looked at that, you've got a lot of people that in the financial space. It doesn't matter if you're number one in your company. It's, are you performing to the best of your capabilities with the resources that you have now, with the status that you have now, and then can you amplify it? One of the things that we talk about in basketball a lot is like master the role that you're in while working towards the role that you want. Master the role you're in. So for some of those people, if they're just starting out, their role might not be to go meet with the whales, the people that have a ton of money to invest in and a ton of capital to pour into their company. It might be, okay, your prospects are going to be the lower tier people right now. But if you win with them and you dominate that, then eventually you're going to get to that next level. And then eventually you're going to crush that level and move up the next level. And so I really think too many people look at what they're not doing instead of what they are doing and what they can do. And that's all we focus on. We spend zero energy focused on what the media says, what the fans say, what the haters say. Like that, none of that stuff helps. So if it doesn't help, then why give it any attention? So that's the long answer to basically just saying we really don't give a F what anyone else has to say.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is run our own race and become the best possible player and have the best possible career that each individual can have. And that's where we pour our energy to. Because trust me, if you do enough digging, you can find a ton of justifiable excuses and reasons why you should not be, wherever you think that, whatever. Yeah, I could easily say, Drew, you're a 5'11" white guy. You NBA players shouldn't listen to you. Drew, you never played in the NBA. NBA players shouldn't listen to you. Drew, you've never coached in the NBA. NBA players shouldn't listen to you. Or I can do the opposite and say, listen, I'm not as good as my NBA players. I never had a career as good as those players. I don't have the experience, in the coaching in the NBA. But what I do is I turn players into monsters. There's a reason why all my guys become all-stars. There's a reason why, all my guys have, 9-figure deals. There's a reason why I have $5 billion worth of contracts. And when I look at it that way, oh, now I'm the guy, And so I think that there's too many times where people have these, I'm in a small market. Oh, I don't have as many prospectings. I don't have any. Those are all justifiable excuses. But if you let that define you, you're going to stay in the same spot. If you go figure out ways, I'll give you something that I gave actually a financial client of mine. They were saying they weren't able to touch the reach that they wanted to touch. And I said, all right, he was in Philadelphia. I said, why don't you go buy a suite at one of the, Sixer games or one of the Eagle games and bring in all these big players, big spenders and people that have, have accumulated, great assets that they need to, put into, kind of financial planning and stuff like that. Why don't you invite them to experience? Now it's different. You're not asking them for a phone call. You're inviting them to a game. He did it and he converted 2 out of the 12 people that he brought. And I was like, that's awesome. That's 2 people that you thought that you would never have had a chance with. Do it again. Next time it was 3 out of like 16. And he started he's like, Drew, this is the best thing I've ever done. I'm like, yes, it's different. You know what I mean? It's different. But, I think that that's the other thing is people always look at traditional methods instead of really thinking outside the box and asking yourself, what can I do that stands out? If you have a young financial advisor, and then we'll move on, but if you have a young financial advisor and I say, hey, I've got a billionaire, we got Mark Zuckerberg that wants to invest. Why should he choose you over everybody else? They might be like, right now, you're not the best solution for that person. Yet
Yeah.
you're complaining that you don't have the access to that person. You would know that, if you were Mark Zuckerberg, you would choose somebody else. So what you have to do is you have to figure out ways to get yourself confident enough to believe you're the person that is best for Mark Zuckerberg. Until you're ready for him, don't complain that you don't have access to them, that you're not getting those kind of opportunities. And so what you want to do is you want to basically work towards those opportunities so that you have the confidence that when you are on the phone, when you are in that meeting, when you are face to face with that person, they're feeling the confidence because they know that you're the best person for them because you know that you're the best person for them. But I think too many people skip over those steps. They just want everything handed to them and they want all these opportunities, laid out on their desk instead of going out there and being creative to earn those opportunities that'll ultimately change their life and their career.
I think that's really important what you just said about thinking outside the box and maybe thinking outside of untraditional methods. And that's one of the things we chat about, with sales in general, financial services, real estate, really any profession. I mean, even think of basketball and training, doing the typical exercises or going out there and doing the typical meetings or whatever it is, or the same strategies to find new clients. Today's day and age is changing so much. And, I want to hit on this real quick because when I heard this story, I don't think it was from you. I think it was from Sam on your team who shared this with me. But I want to hit on this story because this talks about what thinking outside the box is. So when I think we were in Puerto Rico, and it was Sam confirmed the story. I think you and I might have actually talked about it in Vegas, or our good friend Ben Newman might have shared it. But there was a video clip that I think Sam was working on, and it was you in the background, and it was you looking at the camera. And I think it was Joel Embiid, or it might have been Jason Tatum or Bradley Beal, one of these guys that was out there practicing. And Sam had got it all on video, and you were looking at the camera. And Sam was telling me, I was like, oh, is he just checking to, make sure the editing's good? And he goes, no, Drew's actually looking to see where the foot placement is when that shot was made to make sure that that is the right place for where the foot needs to be when he pulls up for that jumper. Talk about attention to detail and talk about thinking out of the box. Most coaches, most sales professionals are not thinking into that much detail. And so one of the things that I think is super unique about your practice and the way you approach not only speaking, not only, what you're doing with NBA athletes or coaching, is in every aspect of that, you're looking at the fine detail. And I think for everybody on the call, one of the things that we could take away from what you just mentioned is look at our own practices, look at our own businesses, figure out, okay, what is the traditional method? Is it working? If it's not, let's find something else. Let's think outside the box. And when we think outside the box, the first question let's ask ourselves is, what can we do different? Where can we go ahead, find those specific details that maybe somebody else isn't chatting about that we could go ahead and bring to our clients and bring up in a conversation? And so, Drew, you and I could talk for hours on this. I love chopping it up. But what I want to get to is the meat and potatoes. Tell us about this book. Tell us about what first inspired you to write a book, and then tell us about the launch, and then I'll make a couple announcements on it as well.
So I'll talk about that. So it's funny because in the book, there's a section on stop, start, change, continue. And that to me is one of the strategies that people should do all the time. What are the things that I need to start doing that, that I've never done before? What are the things I need to stop doing that I'm doing currently that aren't helping me get closer to where I want to get to? What are the things, like if you start looking at that stuff, if you think about just the start doing, what are the things I'm not doing that I know I should be doing? That's an easy question, but most people don't ask that. The stop aspect. What are the things that I know that I shouldn't be doing that I'm doing that I need to stop? The next one, continue. What are the things that I'm doing that are working that I need to keep doing because obviously they're fueling my success, my current success? And then what are the things I need to change? Like, what are the things that I'm doing, but I could tweak it and adjust it to make it a little bit better? But I mean, that's, to be honest with you, I think that's the best thing. The thing I'm most proud about the book is a workbook. So I'm going to show you a little bit. I really haven't showed anybody like it's called Stop Bullshitting Yourself, but like inside the book, you're actually filling out, like you're filling out your plan as you're going. So it's every story. It basically has a concept and it has a story that hits home, that drives it home. And then it has you actually apply that strategy so that you leave the book with a blueprint. So, it's talking about this one. It's like, oh, the first step is the hardest. Well, guess what? Then on the next page, it asks you, to break down into starter steps. Like, okay, there's this big audacious goal that you have. How do we break it down? Very similar to like you asking, how to do an audit, basically is what I call it. The first chapter in the book is all about the audit, and it's auditing your life, auditing your business, auditing your finances, auditing your health, like auditing all these things so that you can really find out, what are the invisible strings that are holding you back? Because I all believe that we have habits that are holding us back. We all have, kind of doubts, insecurities that are holding us back. We all have conversations that we're avoiding that we know we need to have that would completely alter and change our life for the better. We all have these dreams that we are delaying that if we actually started going after them, that we'd feel a lot, better about where we're headed. So I just think that the big thing is like, the book is all about identifying these invisible strings, things that are holding you back, that are causing you to settle for less than you're capable and that you're deserving of. And then basically using these strategies, using the system to break it down into simplified actions that you're not just going to take when you're motivated, that you're actually going to take on the days that you're not motivated, so that you have the discipline to build that consistency that we talked about earlier. And then finally, you can rewrite the story of your life, but that's what I do. I take NBA players and I completely rewire their mindset, and then I rewire their actions. And then once they do those things, the end result is completely changed. But I think that too many people, they look at the end result of what do I want instead of what do I need to do to get to where I want. And I think that's the ultimate pivot that they need to make if they really want to make changes in their life.
One of the things I love that you just shared, well, first, I'll take a step back. I love the book in the concept that it's got the story, the lesson, the action, what you need to do. I think a lot of people, as they read books these days, they get into it, they read the story, then they move on to the next chapter, but there's no call to action on that.
That's all that matters.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things I love about that visual, it was okay, the first step is the hardest. To be honest, most authors just leave it at that. The first step is the hardest. Go out there, get to work, and do that. I like how you flip to that next page and it's, hey, the first step is the hardest, but let's break it down even farther. Let's get more ingrained. Let's look at what it's going to take to even hit that next baby step, even if it's just putting one foot in front of the other. And that's what's going to get there. I love that image.
And I think the other thing is like when I really started doing this book, I was breaking it down, but the thing that I think is most important is this right here. So if you look at this graphic, and I teased it a little bit earlier, but it's like, what is the change you want to make? But then you break it down into three things. So I'll give you an example. Let's say somebody wants to improve their health. Most people just say, I want to lose weight.
Yep.
Great. Where do you start? And so I'd say, what are the three things that you need to do? What are the top three things that you need to do in order to lose weight? And so for my dad, it was pretty simple. It was number one, I've got to eat better. And again, eat better still isn't enough. So we had to go layered, but eat better. Number two was be more active. I meant just daily walks. That meant, not being on the couch as much. I meant like when he wasn't working, being more active. And then number three was he had to actually start working out. Those seem like, okay, now I got it. Well, you don't have an action plan. Eating better, what does that mean? So then that's where we go to the third level. Eating better. What does eating better mean? Well, we're going to fast. We're going to fast from 8 p.m. till 10 a.m. every single day. That's step one. Step two, eating better. Every meal you're going to cut in half. You're going to eat half your meal, then wait 15 minutes. If you're still hungry, you can eat the other half. But we realized his portion control wasn't good. That was step number two. Number three, every single day you're going to chug, water when you wake up, because a lot of times when you think you're hungry, you're actually thirsty. So wake up, drink water. When you're hungry, drink water. If you're still hungry, then eat. Those 3 changes completely altered his meals and nutrition. Then we went to the second one, be more active. It was something like, hey, you want to spend more time with the grandkids too? Great. Every day, do one thing with the grandkids. It can be go to the park. It can be coach them baseball. It can be go toss a football with them. Doesn't matter. Be more active. Number 2, go walk around the block. If you're feeling like terrible, go walk around our block. If you're feeling great, walk around the neighborhood. Feeling really good, jog around the neighborhood. But every day you're going to do something around the neighborhood. You're going to walk, you're going to jog, you're going to do something. Number 3, again, he hated, he hated like the active part. And so I said, if you want to listen to, he loves the Raiders football and he loves like AC/DC music and stuff. I said, if you want to listen to music or podcast, you have to be doing something active while you're doing it. So you can cut the grass. You can, do the walk. You can go. If you want to listen to those, you have to do something active. That was our active piece. And then the third thing was working out. And so step 1 of working out was every night you're going to lay out your clothes. You know why? Because if you walk over those clothes, you're going to feel like shit. Number 2, every day you're going to take a selfie and send it to me. I call it bullshit buddy. Like you have a bullshit buddy that holds you accountable, like when you're bullshitting. But I was his bullshit buddy. Every day I got a selfie that showed me, that proved to me that he was working out. And then the number 3 thing is basically we just set it up where every day it's going to be a 15-minute workout. It could be 30, it could be 45 if you're feeling good, but every day you're going to do at least 15 minutes of moving weights. 90 pounds in 1 calendar year using a simplified system. But notice we didn't just say, I want to lose weight. That's where most people stop. Then the people that think they've really got a plan, they go to the next level and they say, I'm going to eat better, I'm going to work out, and I'm going to be more active. We went even further. We went to, this is how I'm going to be, healthier. This is how I'm going to be more active. This is how I'm going to work out and make sure that I consistently work out. So again, you can use that for everything. I do it for everything. I do it for MBA guys, when we're talking about plans. I would do it for a financial planner. If you want more, hey, I want to raise my the amount of premiums that I'm selling. I want to raise the amount of, perfect, go. I want more cold calls. How are you going to get those cold calls? You know what I mean? I want to be able to, attract clients that are outside of my reach. How are you going to do those things? You know what I mean? And you start, I want to upsell my current clients. Okay, well, how are you going to do those 3? Those 3 things will get you more money in the door, will get you more resources, but you got to be able to break those down into actionable steps that you're willing and actually going to take.
Yeah, and you beat me to it when you said it. That strategy applies to everything. Whether it's us as individuals saying, hey, we want to lose weight, whether it's us as professionals coaching individuals or telling our financial advising clients, hey, okay, you want to, I'll just throw out an example. You want to become financially independent. That's the new thing, the FIRE strategy. Everybody talks about it. You want to do that at 50. Less than a fraction of a percent of Americans are financially independent at 50. So if you want to do that, we got to go through your chart, figure out those steps. And, honestly, thinking outside the box right now, as you're telling me that, and I'm saying it out loud, that might be a strategy. I just draw those circles in a client meeting with a client. And I go, hey, we've identified the problem. Now, these are the 3, different high-level solutions. Now let's go ahead and break it down even more and go, what do we need to do? Maybe 3 things. I think I saw on that chart, 3 different bubbles for each one. Let's do it even there. And then let's take it even farther and let's tie dates to them. Because in a financial plan, a lot of people will go out there and say, oh yeah, we could do all this stuff, let's get it done. But there's no hard date to get it done. It's like, hey, this quarter, we want to do this. And I think also as business owners, what we need to do with that same chart is we need to put that into our business and take a look at it and go, okay, how does that impact us? How does that help us with our goals? How does that help us with our business? And how does that help us with our mindset as well? And one of the things we've been hitting on quite a bit, our good friend Ben Newman taught me many years ago, the prize fighter day, the game plan, making sure that you're attacking your daily disciplines. I think taking your concept of the bubbles, and if it's not like timeline related, where it's in the sense of, hey, we want to become financially independent, so we got to save X amount of money by this date, like that aside, let's use the health example and say, okay, Dad's working out 15 minutes a day. You put that on your prize fighter day and you go ahead and make sure it's there. So that way it's not something that you're like, okay, I just need to work out 15 minutes a day. It's now I'm holding myself accountable. It's on my list. And I think the final point to what you just said about your dad sitting in the selfie ties back to also your relationship with Jason that I was going to mention earlier. Tyron Woodley said this, I think, when you and him shared the stage in Vegas back in 2018. And I'm going to butcher it and I apologize, but it was something about small circles create big impacts. And one of the things that I focused on taking away from that is understanding it's all about how and who you surround yourself with. And I think one of the great things in your story, not only from your dad sending that accountability, but Jason reaching out to you when the media is talking about all the things they want to say about him, he's got his circle. And I think for us, as professionals, we have to create our circle too. And we have to, like you said in that first chapter, audit that circle. Because some people aren't always going to be in there long term. Some people will be in there for maybe one chapter in your life. Some people will be in there for maybe 20, 30 years. And you don't know, and you need to continuously audit that. So I am very excited for the book to come out. Our big announcement. So for everybody up to what's the date today? January 28th. Everybody that has been a coaching client, that is a current coaching client, or anyone that you have referred to become a coaching client, we are going to be sending them a copy of Drew's book on us. Thank you, Drew, again for taking the time. I'm also going to be getting a handful of copies for my team as well too. But I am super excited to read this book. And the thing that I love to see about this book coming out is I feel, and I know, COVID was a wild time. We were trying to think, I was thinking about launching a podcast back then. You did a little snippet for me back then too, and that was awesome. But being in Vegas in 2018 and hearing your story originally, then I think we went out to dinner that night and here talking a little bit more and seeing the progression over the past 6 years of your career, not so much just with NBA athletes, but in the coaching space with everything else that you're doing, has been so much fun to watch. And to see it now being in a book with something that most authors, in my opinion, don't do, which is give you the actual tactics, I think that's going to be a game changer. So
No, it's all, I
I'm super
appreciate that.
excited.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say I'm the same way with you. Like obviously, ever since we've met, it's been fun seeing all the stuff that you've been doing, how you've grown and stuff like that, and that's what it's all about. Like honestly, I really do think that everyone out there that's listening, it doesn't matter where you are. What matters is where you're headed. And I think that if you look at the trajectory of your life, if you love it, keep going. If you don't, this could be the day that you change it. And I know that it seems corny to say like, oh, one moment, one decision, what like could change everything, but it really does. And I think that, to me, the commitment to yourself, and the thing that I would love to leave this on is this is something that I really love, but I always ask business professionals whenever I meet them for the first time and I'm sitting down and I'm like, what would you do if someone that you loved needed you? And they're like, anything. And I'm like, if your daughter needed, this, if your son needed this, if your wife needed this, if your husband needed this, if your mom needed this, if your dad needed, you go down the list. They're like, literally, Drew, I would do anything. I would give up everything. And I'm like, well, guess what? Someone you love needs you. And that someone is you.
Yeah.
You need you. And the reason that you are where you are is because of the decisions and actions you've made to this point, which means the decisions and actions you're making now are going to get you to where you're going to be later. And so you need you. And I really do think that most people don't look at that. My dad would not start walking because I couldn't give him enough information to change his motives. I kept saying, you're not healthy. You're this, you're that. And the second that I got him in the driveway one morning and we came back from the Super Bowl and I said, Dad, we need to have a conversation. We need to talk. I said, listen, you lost your dad, my grandpa, a decade early because he did not change his health.
Mm-hmm.
You know how every single time that you go to his gravestone and celebrate his birthday and Father's Day and St. Patrick's Day because he's Irish, with his gravestone, you could be celebrating with him if he made different decisions and actions.
Yep.
You know the pain that your mom wakes up with every morning, that the fact that she's had to live a decade without her soulmate? That's because your dad didn't change his decisions and actions. Do you realize that he was my biggest fan. He never got to see me play in the NCAA tournament. He never got to meet his great grandkids. He didn't get to see my sisters get married. He won't get to see my family, future family, because of his decisions and actions. I said, do you realize you're going to cause all of us that same pain that you have to live with if you don't change? Boom. It hit him finally. It hit him where it mattered. And he
Talk
finally
about
the
being
next
selfish.
morning woke up and finally put on his shoes and walked for the first time. And so if you're out there listening to this and you've listened to all these different strategies and tactics and you say, these are great, but I've heard a lot of strategies and tactics. Guess what? You need to have that conversation with yourself. You need to have that gut punch to realize that what you're doing now is impacting not only you, but also, the people that you love. And hopefully that motivates somebody that's listening to finally go all in, finally, get more out of themselves so that they can finally be proud of the life they're living and leave that legacy and leave the, kind of the same motivation to everyone else around them that is looking up to them for that inspiration, and so I think that's a great way to close it, just because I do think too many people out there are tool collectors. They're constantly trying to get new tools, new shiny objects. They don't need more tools. They need to use the tools that they already have in their shed. And if you do finally go all in and have that mentality that, whatever I'm after is possible if I break it down into small enough steps, I think that's when people will really finally get the results that they're after.
Absolutely, man. We're going to tag your social media handles down on the bottom of this. We're going to post a little bit on YouTube, a little bit on Instagram. But I just wanted to say thanks again for taking the time. Thanks for being our Titan Talk on mindset for January. I'm excited for the book to come out. I'm excited for everybody on our team and also all of our coaching clients to read the book and everything else. And it'll be fun. Maybe in 4 or 5 years, we'll do another one of these. You'll come back and then we'll be able to talk about 2018 to 2028, the 10-year path of Drew Hanlen and where we're at. So I appreciate it, man. Thank you. And we'll go ahead and chat soon.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Keep pouring into people. I love all the things you've done and I love all the things you're getting ready to do. So keep pouring into people. It'll all be worth it.